A bit of redemption on the football field for one team, and for others, huge matchups as they zoom toward the playoffs. Plus, absolute dominance on the hardwood as some of the area's best teams make their case for title contenders. And a huge turnaround from the Fort Vancouver tennis team. Hear how they're building their program one push-up at a time. And hear from Micah Rice of the Columbian. We have smoke, we have fire, we have your Clark County Scoreboard. Welcome to Clark County Scoreboard. I'm Brian Slike. We start with a trip to Evergreen School District with some fun volleyball action. Craig Burnback joins us now with some of it and a story of how one football team is trying to turn around a tough season. Craig?
Thanks, Brian, and it's amazing that we're more than halfway through the regular season already. And for some football teams, that means they're concentrating on having a much better second half than they did in the first half of the season. And that's certainly true for Heritage High School, who finally found a way to win on Thursday night against Evergreen High School at McKenzie Stadium. Through the first 5 games of the season, things did not go as planned for Dennis Moody's T-Wolves.
You know, between COVID and injuries, we've struggled the first 3-4 games of the year. We've had 8, 9, 10 guys out at one time.
But on Thursday night against Evergreen, Heritage was healthier and they were better. The best of the bunch was LaDamian McCord. First, he does it on defense with the perfect pass deflection to teammate Aiden Miller for the pick. On the very next play, McCord will take a Khalil Osborne pass and get gone. That's 80 yards to the house for the first score of the game. Evergreen had some fight in them on this night, though, as Janen Crace lets loose a picture-perfect pass to Shane Newell, who galloped 73 yards for the score. But look who's back. It's McCord again, who gets another Osborne pass and flips in for his second touchdown of the game.
LaDamian McCord had a huge game, 2 touchdowns, great defensive play.
And oh yeah, McCord also scored both 2-point conversions. And on this night, that would be huge, because even though the Plainsmen added this pretty Jordan Peters 41-yard touchdown catch, the T-Wolves defense would do its job, and Heritage wins their first, the final 16-13.
Our guys have never wavered. They've really worked hard, and they needed it, and they deserved it, and they went out and earned it, and I couldn't have been prouder of them.
And look out, this just might be the start of something really good for Heritage.
It's good, and again, we're healthy. We figure that we can compete with some teams when we're healthy, so hopefully we can stay so the next 3 weeks or so.
In the nightcap on Thursday, McKenzie, Mountain View hosting a campus team that's finally found its footing. Went 0-5 against tough teams in Oregon, but now the Papermakers are flying. That's a nice pass from Leone to Brock Thornburg for 6. Later, it's Ione again. This time, he plays pitch and catch with Mark Thorgelson, and it was 24-0 Papermakers at the half. Second half time for the running game. John Schultz is going to go right up the gut. That's in, and it's 31-0. Mountain View is going to get on the board. Mitch Johnson, he's going to give you the old fake and fling, and he finds Jacob Martin on the bomb. That's a nice play, but the result, only nice for Camas. They cruise to a 38-7 victory. All right, let's talk some volleyball, where last week we featured Evergreen High School, who's looking to build back their program behind their head coach and former Evergreen star player, Nichelle Bethune. And this week, they showed they're getting better every week as they played a nail-biter against Mountain View. Yep, this was a battle and would go the distance of 5 sets. First set, look at the Thunder get to the net for the big block. Mountain View takes that one. Game 1's final, 25-20. But the Plainsmen come storming back. The sweet serve here from Halen Simon, and Evergreen would win the next 2 games. But down 2-1, the Thunder comes storming and rolling from behind. Thanks to big shots like that one from Edith Lajuka And eventually, it's going to be Bethany Pham with the clincher for Mountain View. They take it 3-2, but what a great game. This week, EPS Sports is going to be back broadcasting some football on Friday night, as we're going to have a doubleheader, Kelso at Evergreen, which will be followed by Battleground against Heritage. Of course, we'll have all those games on our YouTube channel, and we'll have highlights right back here next week on Clark County Scoreboard. But for now, I'm Craig Burnback at EPS. I'll send it back to you at VPS.
Thanks, Craig. Out to Union now for a big 4A matchup, and one thing you can say about Union is that they know how to do an intro. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and the Titans came out hot. They took a big lead early in this one behind some strong serving and net play. The student section was loving it, but Skyview hung around, riding the hot hand of Tyra Schaub. The Gonzaga commit was great all night long, and here she closes out the first set with a tough serve and the kill from the back row to give the Storm a 25-20 victory. Second set was the same story. Union took the early lead before the Storm roared back. They're up 24-23, and after a back-and-forth rally, it's Schaub at the net who picks up the tool as the Titans can't keep their block in bounds, and Skyview takes set 2, 25-23. In set 3, the Storm didn't let Union get out to that big lead again. They cruised, and as the set wound down, some tough Union digs were all for naught as Skyview closed this one down. They take set number 3, 25-16, and complete a hard-fought sweep. Now over to Columbia River High School, where the number 2 ranked Rapids look like a title contender versus Hawkinson. First set and the Rapids are looking good. Check out this blistering swing from Riley Reeves, putting the exclamation point on a dominant first set. That's worth a second look in slow-mo replay. Nobody is able to dig that one, and the Rapids cruise to a 25-4 set win. Set 2, it's deja vu all over again as the rally ends with a huge River kill, and they win by the same score, 25-4. In the third set, River does more of the same, winning 25-11. The Rapids' sole loss on the year is to number 1 ranked Ridgefield, and those two have a match coming up next week, which should be a lot of fun to watch. Let's turn our spotlight back to football, and we're going to start up north. Let's head up I-5 to Kelso, where the Highlanders hosted Skyview. Kelso is a playoff contender at the 3A level, the Storm at the 4A level, and the Storm strike first with this 17-yard touchdown run from Jaden Knapp. Kelso is undeterred though, and in the second quarter they march all the way down to the Skyview goal line before this catastrophic fumble changed the tide and Skyview recovers. The Storm drive it all the way back, almost 100 yards, to score with ease on this Knapp run, 14-0 Storm. Third quarter, it's Knapp again, this time from 50 yards out. He takes that big surge from the Storm front line and makes a cut. A couple of broken tackles later, and he's in the end zone to give the Storm a 3-touchdown lead. Down 21-0, Hunter Latier rolling out of the pocket, floats the ball up into the end zone, and his man Colby Cooper brings it down with the toe tap for good measure. There's hope for the Highlanders as they're down 21-7. But Skyview snuffs that hope out pretty quickly. On the next possession, Knapp goes 63 yards to the Kelso 2. Knapp ran for 204 yards with 4 touchdowns on the night. On the next play, Nico Ariola runs the read option with Knapp, keeps it himself, and it's 28-7 Skyview. They would hold on to win 35-14, moving to 5-1 on the season. Kelso drops to 4-2 overall. Just a bit south at Battleground High School, the Tigers were pumped to host Union, but this one was all Titans. In the first quarter, Union strikes quickly. Mitch Radigan rolls to his right and puts some air under it to Marcus Cantu, who beats his man and goes 64 yards to the house. Union takes the early lead. This game, though, belonged to Jaden Jones. The senior had 257 yards on the ground and 5 touchdowns. You're watching 3 of them right now. As the Titans and Jones pounded the ball on the ground all night long, Jones left the game before the end of the third quarter as the Titans were up big. Battleground managed to get on the scoreboard on this touchdown from Leighton Reynolds. He had a nice game with 64 yards on the ground, but Union took the game 43-6 and remains undefeated in league play. Not far from there, Ridgefield took on Mark Morris in a 2A matchup, both teams with playoff hopes. This one was Ridgefield's all the way as Connor Delamarter gets the scoring started on this strong 9-yard touchdown run. Next, it was Davis Pankow's turn. 14-0 Ridgefield. Pankow, again, this time from the 10-yard line. With the stutter step, he breaks a tackle and goes in for his second taste, and it's 21-0. And later, with Ridgefield up 4 touchdowns, it's guess who? Davis Pankow. He takes the handoff to the outside to find the hole, makes a couple of moves, and follows his blockers downfield, turns on the extra gear, cruising in for a 31-yard touchdown run. Pankow and Coach Scott Rice know the credit goes to the boys on the front line who paved the way for his big night.
I just saw holes the size of trucks. I mean, my O-line was blocking their butts off. Shout out to Danny McDonald, Matthew Kinswell, Connor Bledsoe, Vinny Lindsay, and Wyatt Barchoff. I mean, they blocked their butts off, and I couldn't have done it without them.
It's clicked in the last 2 weeks for our offensive line guys, working as a unit, playing together, and our running backs are doing a great job being where they're supposed to be, and it's just all of a sudden just kind of coming together for us.
Ridgefield wins 42-0 and remains undefeated at 6-0 on the year. They take on Columbia River this week. Sticking in the north to R.A. Long High School, it was senior night, and after a pregame ceremony, the Lumberjacks took on the Beavers of Woodland. Woodland strikes first as Dalton Biasi spins and keeps churning the legs for a touchdown. After the 2-point conversion, it's 8-0 Woodland. A huge play here for R.A. Long. Under a minute left in the half, and the Beavers snap the ball over the punter's head. He has nowhere to go but fall on the ball, and the Lumberjacks take over at the Beavers' 17-yard line. Jamon Harris puts in a contender for play of the week, taking this pitch to the left, but cuts all the way back to the right, slipping a couple of tacklers along the way, and suddenly it's 8-7 Woodland before the half. But that 2-point conversion would be the difference in the game. The score holds. R.A. Long has one more gasp, but this sack by Malcolm Kacharski and Cody Armstrong effectively ends the ballgame, and Woodland takes the win. Now over to Kiggins Bowl, where the Eagles of Hudson's Bay hosted the Washougal Panthers. Bay up 6-0 when Washougal quarterback Holden B takes the designed run off tackle, making defenders miss, and takes it in for the score. Later, Bay up 9-7 when the Washougal D taps that ball up into the air and into the waiting hands of a linebacker. The Panthers' defense was great all night, and later, a backbreaker for the Eagles as the Panthers' Holden B heaves it deep to Carson Morris, and he goes 84 yards into the end zone. Washougal wins a hard-fought victory, 27-16. Let's head to Le Center. The Fort Vancouver Trappers are in town for some Friday night fun, but Le Center gets going on special teams as Levi Giles takes the Trapper punt, catches some blocks, and gets an escort to the end zone. This put the Wildcats up 7-0 before they even ran an offensive play. Remember Giles? We'll be seeing him again in a moment. Later, Darren Cepeda hits Davari Grauner on the slant, jumping in front of the defender, and that's a 14-0 Le Center lead. Later, Giles shows off again, this time for 53 yards untouched. Giles finished with 5 catches for 154 yards. Fort gets one touchdown on the board late in the fourth as Jesse Mumm catches this one in the back of the end zone. He had a nice night himself, but Le Center in control the whole way, winning 47-8. Fort is having a difficult year on the football field, but on the tennis court, they're among the area's very best. It's been a long journey to a winning program for the Trappers, and here to tell us how they did it is Coach Corey Farr and his players Brian Reyes, Jeffrey Trong, and Andrew Field. Welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Getting ready for the playoffs here this Friday.
That's part of the reason why we wanted to talk with you. We're excited to see what you have in store. You know, the first question here is for Coach Farr. This program was struggling in the past. What brought you into this position, and did you think you could change the culture along the way?
What made it appealing was I was told I was going to coach tennis. I asked how many players it took for there to be an assistant coach, like my second year teaching here. And the AD said, get back to me in a week. And so I came back in a week, and he's like, hey, by the way, you're going to be the head coach. And so okay. And like you said, the numbers, the program wasn't having a lot of success. And the first thing that we need to do is just recruit athletes. And that was pretty easy as, a younger vocal guy in the hallway, stuff like that, just getting guys out. And that was the first step. And then we got lucky. And we got lucky with guys like this who stuck around for 4 years, and having a guy like Jeffrey who's, tennis first and been tennis first for a few years has made the ascent to second place a lot easier.
This one is more for all of you, but what do you think has really led to that success and turnaround this season?
There's just a camaraderie within the team. Everyone just supports each other. Everyone's just always having fun on the courts. And just like the energy that everyone gives out. And it's just like it's competitive, but it's fun. It's like you want to one up your friends, you want to one up each other, and you just get better by beating each other.
It's definitely the culture that we definitely built within the 4 years. So the 4 years I've been here, since I've been here my freshman year, just everybody was building each other up, knocking each other down because we want to beat each other as hard as we can, and then bring each other back up to improve and then get better as a team.
Yeah, I agree. I think because I came in, I hadn't played tennis previous to freshman year. So I came in and I was super quiet. I didn't know anyone. And Sam, he was our senior last year. He came up to me and he was just a really good friend. And just like, I remember being on JV, like being with the C team kids and stuff, and looking on the other side of the fence and seeing them hit. And I was like, man, that's where I want to be. And I just put in the work because because they kind of inspired me.
I noticed some of your athletes on Twitter were partaking in a 10,000 sit-up push-up challenge. Who partook and what was behind the reasoning of it all?
It started as just kind of a COVID thing because like we were all stuck at home, we couldn't practice, and so it was just something we needed to do, and it was something that like my dad had done with some poker buddies like I don't know 15 years ago, and I think they all put in some sort of money. I don't remember what it was, but they all bet $50 to $100 each or whatever, first one to complete it, and it was just kind of something that like, hey, we need something. Our ADs talk about we need to do something with our kids during this dead period to get them just at least engaged and active in some stuff. And so I was like, oh, well, why don't we do a 10K challenge? And the first year was a lot better. I was a little more organized about it, kind of bumped it up a little bit more too. But we still had, I think, 7 or 8 people complete either the 10,000 push-ups or the 10,000 sit-ups this year. So that was still good. But I think 2 of them were staff members. So.
All right, you've mentioned it a couple of times. Big day, playoffs coming up on Friday. What are some goals you have in mind for yourselves, and where's the excitement level at for everybody?
Really excited. So for me, last year was the very first year we ever got out of the first stage of the playoffs, ever. And that was a big deal. And I think this year we actually legitimately have a real chance of sending 3 teams out of the first stage. And I'm not saying it will happen, but I think that like that's a legitimate thing that can happen. As long as we get at least one, it will be a success to me. As again, if it hasn't happened in my 7 years until last year, and we can get it to happen 2 years in a row, that'll be a big deal. But honestly, I just want to see people go 1-2 and 2-2. I know it's not a very big, lofty goal, but we've had a lot of years where we have guys just get bounced 0-2, and that's the end of the tournament. We don't even have to go to the second day of the first stage of the playoffs in a couple of my years coaching. So getting people to that second day, just having to come back on Saturday is going to be a success for some of them. And then, like I said, getting Jeffrey hopefully to state. I mean, that's kind of the ultimate, the goal right here is, that'll be the great success. Because we got cheated out of state a little bit last year. Jeffrey and his partner Sam, they qualified. They took first place in the second round of the second stage of the tournaments, but obviously there was no state. So just getting that opportunity to go will be something special. Again, even if he goes 0-2, I don't care. Just getting to go will be the success. But like I said, even if we get extra people to that second stage of the playoffs, will be a monumental success because I don't think it's going to get as good as it is right now for us.
We'll be keeping an eye on you all. Best of luck on Friday in the playoffs, guys.
Thank you.
We've rounded the corner into league play. It's becoming clear who the front runners are in boys and girls sports this year. Joining us now to talk things over is the sports editor of the Columbian, Micah Rice. Micah, thank you for joining us.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Last week, you went to Ridgefield checking in on the QB situation, and they won to a tune of 42-0 over Mark Morris. But what are the rest of the league's chances of making the playoffs this season?
Well, I think they're going to get four berths at least into the Week 10 preliminary round. But I think Ridgefield is by far the best chance to get in. They really didn't miss a beat with Nate DeBeaumont Logan DeBeaumont coming in as quarterback after Braden Mayella suffered a broken collarbone the previous week. And, Ridgefield could just get you in so many different ways. They can pass the ball, whether it's to Ty Snyder or the very fast Isaiah Cowley, who had a couple of really big passes that he broke off. But then they can hit you with the run as well behind that big offensive line. You saw Davis Panko run for 3 touchdowns in a 42-0 win over Mark Morris. And, I kind of asked Ridgefield coach Scott Rice after the game whether putting up another shutout was kind of hearkening back to their defensive roots. And he kind of laughed. He said, well, we're not really hearkening back to anything. We've been playing pretty good defense this year in addition to putting up some big offensive numbers. So that continues to be something that Ridgefield hangs its hat on. And that's why I think they're a heavy favorite in the 2A Greater St. Helens League to not only win that league now with coming up on just 3 games left to go in league play, but also to advance to the state playoffs. I really think Ridgefield has a good chance to be there. Hawkinson also proved some things to us on Friday with a dominant win over Columbia River, 31-6. And again, like Ridgefield, Hawkinson really went back to basics and ran the ball. Mason Wheeler had his best game of the year with running for 131 yards, really set the tone early. So I think there's a really good chance that Hawkinson also gets into that state bracket out of the 2A.
Meanwhile, the standings didn't change, but things are just as tight in 3 and 4A in the GSHL. Any news coming out of those programs?
Well, looking ahead to the 4A, it really is a special week because we get the first of these matchups between the big 3, Skyview, Union, and Camas. You have Union and Skyview going head-to-head on Thursday. They're going to have that night all to themselves. It's the only game going on that night. And so 2 hot programs right now. Union, they're 5-1. They haven't lost since the opening week against state powerhouse O'Day. Skyview also 5-1, with the only loss coming against Idaho powerhouse Coeur d'Alene. And so you get 2 teams with a lot of momentum. This is one of those matchups that's going to decide who ends up on top of the 4A Greater St. Helens League. And so Thursday, Union versus Skyview, really good game to look forward to.
Other than the game you mentioned, are there any other games you're looking forward to this week?
Yeah, I think we have a pretty interesting 3A matchup on Friday between Mountain View and Prairie. Obviously, Prairie's been an interesting team. They've put together some really tough performances and showed that they're a little bit better than their 2-3 record. But Mountain View, they're in the catbird seat when it comes to 3A Greater St. Helens League. They're 4-2 overall and 2-0 in league play with big wins over Kelso and Heritage, a Heritage team that has really come on strong in the last couple of weeks. And so the thing with Mountain View this weekend is if they can beat Prairie on Friday, they will clinch at least a share of the league title, having beaten every team in the 3A Greater St. Helens League with the exception of Evergreen.
All right, let's move over to volleyball, where Ridgefield and Columbia River now rank 1 and 2 respectively at their level. So next week should be a pretty electric matchup when they face off in Ridgefield.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the second clash between those 2 programs, and definitely not the last. I would completely expect Columbia River and Ridgefield to be facing off for a district title in another couple of weeks. But yeah, it just goes to show everyone knew the 2A Greater St. Helens League would have kind of one of the best collections of talent in the state at the 2A level. You look at Ridgefield, they've won the last 2 2A state championships. They haven't dropped off at all. They remain undefeated. They scored a 3-set win over Columbia River when they met earlier this season. And so I think next week when those 2 teams collide again, Columbia River is going to have something to prove, showing that they belong in that conversation as being a possible 2A state title contender.
Lastly, Micah, this week at the Columbian, you are doing a terrific story on a Heritage player who is more than excited about their win this past week.
Yeah, we have an interesting story coming up soon on I always tell the reporters I work with that there are stories to be found not just among the team leaders, but also maybe elsewhere on the field or even on the sidelines. We have one of those coming up with Heritage football senior Nolan Ross. He is a kid who has Asperger's syndrome, so he maybe is a little quiet if you don't know him really well. But he's someone who's really found a comfort zone on the football field. He was there when Heritage scored its first win of the season last week, beating Evergreen 16-13. And I'll tell you, there were few kids on the Heritage team as excited as Nolan when they got that first win of the year. So it's getting to know someone who maybe hasn't taken the most traditional route getting on the football field, but is still having a great time and adding to the team, adding to the culture, and becoming a better young man because of high school football.
Thank you for your time as always, Micah. We look forward to having you on next week.
All right, see you then.
Of course, you can find Micah and his team of reporters covering local high school sports at Columbian.com. They're also fantastic to follow on Twitter, especially when it comes to game days. There are a bunch of sports broadcasts coming up on Comcast channels 27, 28, 29, and 328 for HD. On Thursday, October 14th, CR Sports brings us the Columbia River Rapids versus RA Long in volleyball at 7 p.m. on Comcast channel 29. That same night, VPS Game Time brings us one of the biggest football games of the year. Union versus Skyview live from Kiggins Bowl at 7 p.m. on channel 328. Friday the 15th, VPS Game Time has Ridgefield versus Columbia River from Kiggins at 7 on channel 29. Also on Friday, Evergreen Sports has Kelso versus Evergreen at 4:30 and Battleground versus Heritage at 7 p.m. Both are on channel 328. All of these games are also available on the individual district social media feeds, so check your YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for links. Hey, let's get social with our top posts of the week. This one comes from John Manley of Enumclaw. Not exactly local, but pretty fun. The linemen at Enumclaw are introduced at the beginning of the game as they unload from a cattle trailer. What a fun tradition. Our next post comes from Josh Kirschenbaum, who captured this cool photo from the Woodland RA Long game. That young woman on the screen is juggling flaming batons. What an amazing shot and a brave drum major there at RA Long. We have some video of that performance coming up during the credits, so stay tuned. Finally, some great school spirit from Skyview High School. Teacher Meredith Wales posted this tweet with her leadership students making spirit headbands for students who didn't have storm gear. It's Spirit Week, and this is a great way to get more kids included in the fun. To end the show, here's our Play of the Week, or rather, Plays of the Week. The Columbia River Rapids volleyball team has been dominant all year long, losing just 3 sets all season. A big part of that is the great frontline play from Riley Reeves, Lauren Dreves, and others. Last week, we interviewed Coach Brianne Smedley, so make sure you look up that episode online to learn more about the team's success. These huge kills against Hawkinson show why they're a terror at the net, and they earn our Plays of the Week. And that's it for us. We'll be back next week with more highlights and interviews. If you like the show, make sure you share it and find us on social media at Vancouver and Evergreen Public Schools on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm Brian Slike, and we'll see you next week.